Tonight's episode of Legacy Battle is brought to you by Atlas Benefits.
Atlas Benefits has solutions for your insurance needs. Atlas Benefits can help you obtain Medicare, health, or life insurance and employee benefits. You can find them on the web at www.atlasbenefits.com.
Or you can contact Rob Ducey or Roy Smith at 727-600-2892 and mention Legacy Battle Podcast. Atlas Benefits has all the solutions for your insurance needs. Enjoy the show. This is Legacy Battle. Make sure you hit subscribe on whatever platform you are listening on right now. Continue to rise that viewership numbers way up. We appreciate that. We appreciate you always watching. I'm Michael Adams, creator of Legacy Battle. My panelist tonight from the Gridiron Battle Zone is Brian King. We're doing an interview only tonight. And our special guest tonight, we have a guest that's ranked 73rd on the list of the 100 most influential Canadians in baseball. That's a pretty good number, pretty good list there. So he's been the director of operations for the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame since 2000. We are joined tonight by Scott Crawford. Scott, thank you for joining us.
Hey, well, it's always great to talk baseball, and it'll be a good conversation we're going to have.
Absolutely. Looking forward to this. So as I said, we're having an interview only tonight. We're going to learn about the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, some of its players. We have done prior on the show, obviously, the Mount Rushmore of Canadian baseball. We also had the Montreal Expos Mount Rushmore. Hopefully we'll get to a Blue Jays one eventually. So we're going to start tonight's question out for Scott with this. I want you to tell us, I know it was just announced, but tell us who the 2022 inductee into the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame is and a little bit about his career.
Yeah, well, we just announced in early February we're going to induct Jeff Francis into the Baseball Hall of Fame. He's a British Columbia boy, born and raised out there, and he was a first-round draft pick by the Colorado Rockies in 2002, ninth overall. So great pitching prospect. Started out great. He won the 2004 Minor League Player of the Year from Baseball America. So he was on the rise in the big leagues in late 2004 and permanently come 2005. And, he led the Rockies to the 2007 World Series against the Red Sox. We all know it didn't turn out well for the Rockies because they got swept by the Red Sox, but he was the first Canadian to start game one of a World Series and only the second Canadian to ever start a World Series game, right? So Reggie Cleveland back in 1975 for those Red Sox was the other guy. So overall, he pitched 11 years in the big leagues, almost 1,300 innings. He's pitched multiple times for Baseball Canada at the World Baseball Classic and the Pan Am Games, and he was a starting pitcher when we actually won the gold medal in 2015. I won't say who we beat that year, but if you look it up, you might notice the team that we beat. But it was a good game, extra inning game, and we happened to come out on top that time, so that was pretty cool. And he started that game, and he's one of those guys that had to pitch in Colorado, which we all know is extra tough. But if you look at his longevity of 11 years in the show, World Series pitcher, gold medal winner at the Pan Am Games, multiple times in Baseball Canada, and he's given back to the game. He's retired now, but he helps coach the junior national team. And that's just a way that, we really look at those things as positive things that they're giving back to the game and helping the future generations of baseball.
Anyone who pitches in Colorado has my respect. That's for sure. Your ERA is going.
Yeah. He had a few tough years, but again, he lasted. He pulled it out. He was their best starter for a few years and went on to a few other teams. Played for Kansas City and Oakland and New York, and finished his career with our beloved Blue Jays. So he was in the. A lot of people don't remember, but he was in the bullpen in 2015 when we roared back and after those trades for David Price and whatnot, and made the playoffs in 2015. Jeff was in our bullpen doing pitching for us, so good.
Nice,
Excellent.
nice. Well, the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum, it was established St. Mary's, Ontario, 40 years ago, so 1982. Can you describe the facilities and what visitors can expect, and maybe some additions in the future?
Yeah, we're pretty excited. I mean, we have it's a 32 acres of land, which allows us to have we have 4 different ball fields. We have the museum. We got walking trails. Our ball fields. We have about 1,000 events on our site during the year, and our season sort of goes from mid-April to mid-October, give or take a week or two because of the weather. But our fields are packed every single day of the week, and it's fantastic. You got kids from 5 years old playing baseball up to the elite level teenage baseball, you know, the year they get drafted when they're 18 or going off to college. So it's a wide variety of ages. So you come here, you can always find a ball game to watch on one of the 4 fields or all 4 fields if you really want to come here at the same time and see them. Inside the museum, it's a 3,500 square foot museum. We just newly renovated it. We were closed for 1 year. We closed down in 2018 just to renovate the museum. We sort of did 3 things. One, we built the new addition, which is in the picture that Brian's in, and then we updated the old museum, which is where my picture is, the plaque gallery, and we brought everything in house basically. Before we were spread out to a couple different locations in St. Mary's, and it just didn't work. You know, you want everything in the same building and the same stuff. Our archives, our collection, our offices in the museum are now all situated. So we opened in 2019, our brand new museum. And then we all know the last 2 years haven't gone very well. We've been closed more than open because of COVID, but we're hoping 2022, you know, our plans to open May 1st for the summer, and we really hope we get to do that this year.
So with the MLB Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, they have kind of like what's a veterans committee that, you know, I'm sure you're familiar with it. They put in players that might have missed the cut when they were eligible during their 10 years or so. Is there anybody that you feel should be in the Canadian Hall of Fame that isn't, that may have been overlooked through the years?
I mean, we have a similar voting process as them. We have the selection committee, and then a sort of a group of people that look at people who don't necessarily get in. There's guys. There's a lot on the ballot right now, so they're still active. Guys that haven't got in. I mean, you look at someone like maybe a Jesse Barfield, who one of the greatest outfielders with the Blue Jays and had that rifle of an arm from right field in the 80s.
Yes.
You know, I think he belongs in the Hall of Fame. I mean, George Bell and Lloyd Mosby are in, and so 2/3 of that famous outfield from the 80s is in the Hall of Fame. And Jesse should be in with his numbers and his career home run title and great defense in the outfield and whatnot. And there's Canadians like Eric Gagne and a few other guys that, you know, I think will get in down the line. You got to be retired to be eligible to be in the hall, just like, again, like Cooperstown, you got to be retired. So I think those are probably the top 2 that will, you know, get in soon, I would assume, but aren't in yet.
So for the class of 2021, one of the inductees was Helen Callahan, who played for the All-American Girls Baseball League, the one that was featured in the movie A League of Their Own. Sadly, Helen passed away many years ago, so she was not around to enjoy the induction. But what was the experience like reaching out to the family and informing them that she was going to be the first woman in the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame?
Yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, if you don't know a lot about that league, definitely, you know, the movie League of Their Own is good. I mean, it's from the 80s, so it's been around a long time, and it's got some. We've
had Megan Cavanaugh, who played Marla Hooch, on this show.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah.
Perfect. So you know all about the movie, but there were actually 68 Canadian ladies in that league over the 10 years. So there are a lot of Canadian ladies that played, mostly from Saskatchewan and the Prairie provinces, because of course the league sort of started in central USA, Chicago, and some of those places. But her family was ecstatic. We reached out to her one son who actually played Major League Baseball, Casey Candell. He played with the Expos and a few other guys, and he's actually was the manager of the AAA Buffalo Bisons this past summer, which is the Blue Jays AAA team. So it was pretty cool to have that connection. And he just won co-manager of the year in AAA. So he's doing really well in his coaching career. And you know, he was born in the States from his mom, who's Canadian, but he was pretty pumped because I mean he's got other brothers and siblings, and we touched base with him first because we knew of him and easy access to him, and he spread the words to his siblings, and they all got pretty excited about it. You know, it's their mom. I mean, how do you not get excited about your mom getting into a Hall of Fame? And he spoke at our ceremony, was virtual, of course, but Casey spoke at it and thanked us for it. And it's a good new connection that we have that we didn't have before, and we get to hear some stories about Helen that we didn't know. So it's pretty cool.
So you mentioned Eric Gagne. I'll just throw this plug out there. He's done our show as well. But so you bring him up. We just saw that MLB did not put Barry Bonds in, did not put Roger Clemens in. They're now off the eligibility ballot. Everybody has a different opinion on this. So I was just wondering, what is your opinion on the steroid era players? I don't like how they kind of pick and choose who they think used and who didn't use, because we don't really know for facts. They just kind of go off it. I mean, we saw David Ortiz get in, but we know that he had a positive because that is record. So what are your thoughts on those players? Do you think they'll get into the Hall of Fame one day, in your opinion?
That's a tricky question. But no, I think I was surprised. I'll try this here. I was surprised Ortiz got in his first year for two reasons. One is the connection to steroids back in 2003 when in the report that came out, and two, he was a DH. I didn't think enough baseball voters, and it's the Writers Association of America, would 75% of them would want him in the first year. I thought he'd get in eventually. I thought again this year there'd be nobody in like last year. They didn't have anyone in through the voting process. With Kurt Schilling finished the highest last year, I think. But I'm happy for him. He's in. He got a 77%. So obviously majority of people thought he was a Hall of Famer. Bonds and Clemens, I wasn't surprised. You know, it's such a confusing thing, who was using, who wasn't using. Bonds and Clemens are different. I think they had Hall of Fame careers before they supposedly started taking steroids. Bonds and Clemens never tested positive. They were never proven guilty. They never said they did it. So it's hard because there's no proof. We can all think what we want, and I think the writers obviously showed what they thought. But really, with the with no evidence, where you compare it to a guy like Alex Rodriguez or Manny Ramirez, who they were both suspended a couple times, I believe, in Manny's case, and A-Rod for a whole year. So I'm not surprised they didn't do too well on the ballot, because they're different than Bonds and Clemens, because they did it and they were tested and they were caught and they were suspended. And A-Rod still got, I think, 30% in his first round on the ballot, which I think he's not going to climb up over. If he climbs up over, and gets in before Bonds and Clemens, that's really confusing for all the baseball fans. Yeah. Because he tested positive and got suspended. The other guys didn't. So, we all think we know what we think, but it's a tricky case. There are a lot of guys doing it, and there's probably guys in the Hall of Fame that did it. And, but it was a time when unfortunately a lot of people did it, and baseball didn't necessarily stop it or want to stop it until they had to. And it led to a lot of people, an uneven field for a lot of people.
Well, back to the Canadian Hall of Fame. Can you take us through the process? I mean, I know there's a body of writers, right? Or there's definitely a committee that votes. So can you take us through the process? How many voters are there? The certain deadlines and that sort of thing.
No, for sure. It's again, it's similar to Cooperstown. We have you have to be retired 3 years, where the Baseball Hall of Fame States is 5 years, so that's a slight difference. There's a selection committee spread across Canada. We're the Canadian Hall of Fame, so we want to make sure we cover the whole country. There's 24 voters. You need 75% to get in, and our voters are different than Cooperstown. Cooperstown's all the Baseball Writers Association of America that does that voting. We have 4 different groups of people in our small group of 24, but we spread out our expertise. We have historians, we have baseball executives, we have media, and we have past inductees. So we have a range of expertise in our committee. which is important to us again, because if you look at our inductees, we've inducted announcers and trainers and general managers and scouts and scorekeepers, and so the whole facet of the game of baseball. And I think that's a good thing, because baseball isn't just about the players; it's about all aspects of the game. And basically, the voting takes place over December and January. The deadline to send your information to me is December 1st. I pass it on to the committee, and we basically do our work over the month of January. And then, like we did just recently, we announced, Jeff Francis. Usually the beginning of February, we announce the new class of inductees.
Is there some current players now that you expect will get in one day, or maybe someone who's not eligible yet, like a Vlad Jr. or maybe Jose Batista? Who are you expecting to get in here in the future pretty soon?
Yeah, I mean, Canadian wise, Russell Martin's eligible next year.
Nice.
He has a great start with the Dodgers, and of course, the Pittsburgh team and the Pirates, and
the big home run in the playoffs.
Yep, and the Yankees, and he finished with the Blue Jays. Well, he finished with the Dodgers, back with the Dodgers, but he had a few good years with the Blue Jays. Russell Martin becomes eligible next year. He's a shoe-in, one of the greatest Canadians ever play the game, and one of the best catchers of his generation. I mean, you look at his numbers, he lines right up with the top, 5 catchers in baseball the last 20 years, and he'll get in. Guys like Jose Batista, yeah, he'll get in one time again on his Blue Jay qualifications of, being one of the best Blue Jay players ever to play the game. He's still kind of playing. He played in the Olympics this past summer, so he's got a few more years to wait before he's, officially retired for 3 years. So those guys will be, some shoe-ins in the next couple of years.
Give you another hot button one. A lot of fans out there talk about the American Pete Rose. I mean, I know he did play a little bit with Montreal Expos. Do you have an opinion, or is there? I don't know if there's like official stance or whatever about Pete Rose's eligibility. I mean, obviously not in the Canadian, but for Cooperstown.
Yeah, I mean, I think he broke that. He's suspended by Major League Baseball. So as long as you're suspended by Major League Baseball, you can't be on there. You can't be eligible for the National Baseball Hall of Fame. He's obviously one of the greatest, arguably maybe the top 10 players of all time, with his hits and his runs and the way he played the game and led the Big Red Machine and all that stuff. We all know about his playing days, but he broke one of those rules that he bet on the game of baseball, and that really obviously offended a lot of people. It happened a long time ago, and he's still on the ineligible list. So I don't think he's coming off that list. I think, you hate to say, but maybe once he passes away, people will look into it a little further, and because it's sort of a different honor when you passed away. But again, you look at guys like Shoeless Joe Jackson from the, it's been 100 years and he's still on the ineligible list and long gone. So, I don't think Pete's going to get in. I think he's upset too many people to get in. Yeah,
absolutely. So is there a Hall of Fame class that sticks out to you, Canadian Hall of Fame class that sticks out most to you, and you say, this was the best class we've had, like, ever?
I would, I mean, they're all great, of course. But,
absolutely.
I would say, a lot of people say 2015, and it was Carlos Delgado, great Blue Jay player, Matt Stairs from New Brunswick, played for 12 different teams, great player, pinch hitter. Corey Koski played 1,000 games, mostly with the Twins, and played with the Blue Jays. Felipe Alou, who was a longtime manager and coach with the Expos. Right. And then Bob Elliott, a sports writer, up here for the Toronto Star and the Canadian Baseball Network website, or Toronto Sun, sorry, and the Canadian Baseball Network website. Those 5 guys, a lot of people come to us and say, wow, those are 5 number 1 guys. Like you always think of who's the headliner for induction, some years it's all of them, like 2015, like any of them could have been the headliner, because they're all amazing players for different reasons. And a lot of people come to us and go, do you remember 2015? And I'm like, well, of course I do. But, they're like, that was a year of just 5 amazing people, amazing stories, and different backgrounds from, Delgado's from Puerto Rico and was a catcher in the minor leagues. Felipe Alou played with his 2 brothers in the outfield and then went on to a huge career with the Expos. He played the Expos, he coached, he managed. Koski and Stairs are two of the best Canadians to ever play the game from Canada. And then Bob Elliott. Bob Elliott's won the Spink Award in Cooperstown for writers. He's won our Jack Rainey Award for the media, and he's in our Hall of Fame. So he's one of the greatest Canadian baseball writers ever. So that would be the class I would say.
If I understand correctly, the Tip O'Neill Award is also something that the Canadian Hall of Fame has every season. Can you tell us first off about Tip O'Neill and about what the award means?
Yeah, for sure. Tip O'Neill was sort of the first Canadian superstar. He's from Woodstock, Ontario, which is, I'll say, half an hour south of St. Mary's, or again, sort of halfway between Toronto and Detroit, in Southern Ontario. And he was the first superstar. He played in the 1880s, more or less. They won the World Championship with the St. Louis Browns in the 1880s. He was the first guy to win the unofficial Triple Crown in Major League Baseball. They didn't keep that necessarily award back then, but he led the league in the 3 Triple Crown categories and was first to do that. He's sort of like he's like Babe Ruth. He started as a pitcher, and then he was a better hitter than a pitcher, and so they put him out in the outfield where he couldn't play defense, but he could hit. He didn't have the power of Babe Ruth, of course. No one had that power, but he hit in 1887. He hit 492. So
Wow.
imagine hitting 492 in a big league season. Now, if you look in the record books, it says 435 because in 1887 they counted walks as base hits, and so you didn't really have an on-base percentage. You just had a batting average in 1887. But now the historians have sort of divided the two up, and now you have both. But he still hit 435 that year. So he's one of the guys in baseball history to hit over 400 in a season. And you look at his overall career, we all know how good Larry Walker was playing for Colorado and the Expos and the Cardinals. Tip O'Neill was a 326 career hitter over 1,000 games in the big leagues. So that, again, if you look at the history books, he's right up there in the top 50 all-time hitters in the history of the game. So we named the award after him just because he was sort of the first superstar that played the game. And we started giving out the award in 1984, just after the museum opened. So guys like Fergie Jenkins didn't win the award because he was retired by then. But Larry Walker's won the award 9 times. Joey Votto, who's still one of the best players in baseball with the Reds, he's won it 7 times. Justin Morneau has won it a few times. Jason Bay a few times. But each year we have a committee that sort of votes on the award winner, and then we go down and present at their home park the next year, which is kind of cool. We've the only year we didn't really go was when we gave it to Jamie Romack, who played over in Korea in 2020, because we couldn't go to Korea in 2021. A few things going on in the world that we couldn't travel across the world to deliver the award to him. But I've been down to Cincinnati 7 times in like the last 10 years to give Joey the award. Justin Morneau broke up the streak, and when he won the batting title with the Rockies in 2014, I believe it was. So it was a longer trip to Colorado, but it's a great way to stay in touch with these players, to get promotion for the Hall of Fame, and it's a way to honor these guys. They've had some amazing careers, and we look forward to handing it out many more times.
So we're sponsored by Atlas Benefits, and one of their employees is Tip O'Neill winner Rob Ducey. So I was wondering if you might be able to tell us anything about Rob. I know how well he can hit a golf ball, but tell me maybe a little bit about his baseball career.
Yeah, Rob. I mean, I'll tell you he's awesome, but now you guys already know that. He was inducted in 2013. It was it was George Bell, Tim Raines, and Rob Ducey were the 3 main inductees that year. And he's sort of like, Scott, what am I doing with these guys? Right. And because George Bell and Tim Raines, I mean, Tim Raines is a Cooperstown Hall of Famer, and George won an MVP in 87 and obviously a great long career. And I said to Rob, Rob, look at your career. You played 19 years of professional baseball and 2,000 games of pro baseball, plus you played for Team Canada, plus you're still scouting. I know he's doing a lot of stuff for the Phillies, and then he went overseas and did stuff, and now he's back. You played Canada in the big world tournaments. Like, you deserve to be here just as much as George Bell and Tim Raines do. And so, and of course, humble Rob, he says, he still doesn't believe me, but he's just a down-to-earth guy. His parents are great. They don't live too far away from here, and Rob, a lot of people, some people were surprised until they look at his career. I mean, again, it's not all about your playing days. Rob still played 700 games in the big leagues. Like, add that up, 700 games in the big leagues. Like, how many people do that? And especially from Canada, there aren't very many. And he wasn't a home run hitter. He didn't start every game, but he still played 700 games in the big leagues and another 1,200 games of professional baseball, including times in Japan. So he was well deserving, and that year was great. He loved it. There was a lot of people here that wanted to talk to Rob and see Rob because he grew up in the Cambridge area, played some local ball, sort of top amateur ball in Ontario, and he's a good guy. So he's one of our proud inductees. He's always been so busy. He hasn't made it back here too often because he's been busy, which is great. He's been scouting and he's been overseas and whatnot. So hopefully this year I can grab him in June and drag him back to St. Mary's. But we'll see how the border and everything else come a few months from now.
He's managing a high school team about 10 minutes away from where I live right now. So he's keeping busy.
All right,
Brian, did you have one more, Brian? Or
I could throw one more out if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I understand that both the 2020 and the 2022 classes of inductees will be honored at a ceremony this coming June. So having two classes together at once, does that present any extra challenges?
It does. Because we always announce our class in the beginning of February of each year. And if you remember back to 2020, February in Canada, everything was good. Everything was normal. You heard the odd whisper of maybe something going on, but we announced our class in February 2020, and then Canada basically shut down in March of 2020, and varying times opened a little bit, closed a little bit, etc. So we haven't actually got to honor the four guys from 2020, and that class is amazing. I mean, Justin Morneau won MVP, longtime Minnesota Twins from British Columbia. Two Blue Jay legends in Dwayne Ward and John Olerud, great pitcher and great hitter. And then Jacques Doucette. If you're a Montreal Expo fan, Jacques Doucette was the voice of the Expos for 35 years on the French radio in Quebec, and he's still doing French radio for the Blue Jays to this day. And so that class, they've sort of been put to a side for 2 years, and so I called them up. We kept trying to do the ceremony, it just didn't happen, and so we finally said, let's just delay it to 2022. And we'll just put you in with Jeff Francis got announced. So now we have 5 inductees. It's just a little confusing because people are like, oh, what are you doing in 2020? And how come you're mixing them up and whatnot? But we've inducted 5 people before. And one of the cool things with this class, and we didn't even know it was going to work out this way, but Justin and Jeff are actually the same age. They're both 41, and they actually played high school baseball together in British Columbia. So, roundabout circle is they didn't grow up in the same town. They're sort of an elite team program for teenagers. And they played, and they told us on the phone call that Jeff Francis, who was, of course, a major league pitcher, he was their number 4 hitter because he was the best hitter on that team. And Justin Morneau was the catcher. So it was, and if you know Justin's career, he was drafted as a catcher, but never played a day of catcher. He became the good first baseman. And, but Jeff was the best hitter and best pitcher on that team. And he said Justin just sat there in his catcher's crouch, and he couldn't throw hard because Jeff was a skinny teenager, but he said he just sat there with his catcher's mitt. And as you can imagine, Jeff hit every corner, and Justin said it was the easiest guy to catch for. And then he turned up being the best hitter on the team as well, better than Justin, who won an MVP hitting in Major League Baseball. So it'll be great having those guys together. They're both pretty excited to be on stage at the same time because it's sort of a roundabout circle for them. And with Jeff lives in Ontario now, and Justin lives in Minnesota because he's broadcasting for the Twins. They don't get to see each other that much, so it'll be a nice little reunion from back all the way back to their high school days.
What's the date of the ceremony induction?
It's June 18th.
June 18th.
This year. It's sort of we do a 3-day festival sort of thing. We have a big welcoming event first on the Thursday night, sort of a private little function where you can, intimate function where you get up and close with the guys. And then we have a celebrity golf tournament on the Friday where we bring in past inductees and celebrities from different sports, and we have a fundraising golf tournament. And then the Saturday 18th is the big day. It's all outside on our site on one of our ball fields, and it's a free ceremony, and it's just all day baseball.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Scott Crawford, Director of Operations for the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame. What awesome to have you on. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Michael and Brian. That was awesome. Give me a shout anytime. We can talk baseball all night.
Sounds good. We'll remind everybody, hit that subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Have a great evening.